This is going to be your first reading video for the week of November the 2nd. In this video, I'm going to be doing a short read on a selection called Smoke Jumpers. This will be in your new reading booklet on page 4 and 5. You can find this story in your new reading booklet and follow along with me as I read. Today we're going to be looking at a story called Smoke Jumpers by Matt Bander. As we read, we're going to think about important and unimportant information. Did you know that sometimes a story will have specific information in it that the author has written for you to learn? As we read this text, I'm going to show you how I tell the difference between important and unimportant information. Being able to identify which details are important and which ones are not helps me to be a stronger reader. It helps me to focus on the main ideas in the information that's provided. As I look at this story, first thing that I notice is the title. Smoke jumpers. And I'm wondering what smoke jumpers are. The next thing that I notice are the pictures. When I look at these pictures, I can tell they are real pictures of real people and real places. So that gives me a clue that I'm going to be reading about facts or true information. Another thing that I notice is the captions located with the photos. The captions help tell me more about the picture that I'm looking at, and they give me extra information about what I'm reading. Today, as I read, let's try to focus on the main idea or the most important parts of the story. I'm going to read aloud the title in paragraph 1. Remember to follow along with me as I read. Ready? Smoke Jumpers by Matt Bander. Smoke jumpers work for the U.S. government. They are trained to fight fires in rough terrain, like mountains and other places that are hard to get to. When I want to distinguish between important and unimportant information, I ask myself, what information would I need to know in order to be successful and in order to successfully be able to tell about the topic that I'm reading about? When I read the title Smoke Jumpers, the title is important because it tells me the topic of this selection. I know that the author wants me to know about smoke jumpers, so that part is important. Also, I notice the first sentence is important. It tells me that smoke jumpers work for the U.S. government. This is important information I need to know about the topic of smoke jumpers. Remember, I said I don't know what smoke jumpers are. And so this sentence tells me that they are important and they work for the U.S. government. The next sentence tells me that smoke jumpers are trained to fight fires in rough terrain. This is also important because it tells me that smoke jumpers are a type of firefighter. It also tells me what makes them different from regular firefighters. So this information in the first paragraph is very important. It tells me about my title, and it also helps describe what I'm going to be reading about. Now let's follow along as I continue to read. First, smoke jumpers parachute from planes. Then they float to the ground near forest fires. Firefighting tools, food, and water are also dropped by parachute. Smoke jumpers wear special gear or equipment. It includes helmets with face masks. The gear also includes padded, fireproof suits. The parachutes can be steered by the smoke jumpers. Their bright colors can be spotted quickly. The parachutes are usually red, white, and blue. So as I look back at these paragraphs, the first sentence in paragraph 3 gives me an important detail. Smoke jumpers wear special gear. And it tells me what that is, equipment. The next sentence gives me an example that is important too. Helmets with face masks. The gear also includes padded, fireproof suits. These details are important because the example shows how the gear protects the smoke jumpers when they're fighting fires. Now let's look at paragraph 4. I'll read another important detail in paragraph 4. They have parachutes, and they can steer their parachutes. This is an important detail because it tells how the smoke jumpers are able to avoid landing in the fire. So when they float down, if they're floating near or close to a fire, they're able to steer their parachutes to move away from the dangerous fire. In the last sentence, I see a detail that's important to the topic, and that it is that their parachutes are red, white, and blue. This detail does not tell me anything I need to know to understand a smoke jumper's job. So this detail is not as important as these others. So as I read, I can compare things that are important and things are not important. Smoke jumpers was the title, and I wasn't sure how to tell what that is because I don't know what a smoke jumper is. So when I read, I can find information that helps me, and some information is extra that's not as important. Let's finish the story. Being a smoke jumper takes strength. Smoke jumpers must be able to carry a heavy load. The equipment can weigh 100 pounds. It takes training too. First, smoke jumpers learn how to jump from a plane. Next, they must handle a parachute. Finally, they need to land safely. Once they are on the ground, they must work as a team. So I want you to think about what we have talked about today. Readers need to think about important information as they read, and they need to determine which details are important or needed to know about a topic or a paragraph or about the whole text. They also need to decide which details just provide extra information. As we look at different kinds of stories this week, we're going to be distinguishing between the important and the unimportant information in these stories as well. The important information helps give us clues about the main topic or the main idea and the key details. Remember that we said that authors write for different purposes, and one of the reasons that they write is to share information or to inform us. This is definitely an informational piece, and we can learn important information from reading the story. But the entire story is not as important as some of the key details. So when I read, I know that the title is important, and I know the first sentence and the second sentence are very important. They help me to know exactly what smoke jumpers are. As I continue to read, I can find details that help tell me more about smoke jumpers. The first thing we talked about was that for the government, and they are trained to fight fires in rough terrain, so I know they are a kind of firefighter that works for the U.S. government. The rest of the story gives me key details and information about firefighters. So as I scan through this information, I can choose the key details that are important that help tell me more about smoke jumpers. They have parachutes, they jump from planes, they have special tools or special gear. They can steer their parachutes to stay away from the dangerous fires. And they have to be strong. They have to learn how to jump when they handle that parachute. So all of those are the key details that help tell me more about smoke jumpers that are trained to fight in rough terrain. As we look at different stories this week, we're going to be looking at the important information. Let's think about these questions as we read on this week. Why does an author write the story? We just talked about that with this one. This one was to give us facts and information. Let's think about that as we read other stories this week. Why does the author write that story? Second thing I want you to think about, what am I learning about? If I think about what I'm learning, that helps me to understand what I'm reading about. What text answers the questions? So we can go back and look at the special sentences that help answer the questions about what I'm learning, and those are important information. We can also think about which information is most important. Just like we said, parachutes are usually red, white, and blue. That was an unimportant detail. I didn't have to know that to know what a smoke jumper is. It was extra information. I also can think about this question. How does the author present different information? Remember, we have information presented here in a story. We also have information shown to us in photos. These were real photos, and the captions help tell about those photos. Forest fires damaged the western United States in 2017, so this tells me what these pictures are showing. As we read, remember that good readers try to identify the most important information, and that helps them to understand the main idea and the key details of a text. Thanks, guys. Bye.